Mahabharata, Chapter 3, The Advent of the Kuru Princess, read by Nirvan Bajaj and Ekveer Bajaj. Mahabharata, Chapter 3, The Advent of the Kuru Princess. Ved Vyasa's epic on the Bharat race was first recited in public by his disciple Vaishampayan at the behest of the ageless seer Vyasa himself. The recital took place in the august presence of King Janamejaya, the great-grandson of the grandson of Vyasa, and the many learned sages who had assembled for Janamajaya's Sarpasatra. The second session of our rendering of Vaishampayan's recital described the roles played by Bhishma and Vyasa in keeping the Kuru line alive. It ended with Pandu giving away all the wealth he had acquired in conquests to Bhishma, Satyavati, Ambika, Ambalika and Vidur. Vaishampayan then continued. After giving away the wealth he had acquired by his valor, your great-grandfather Pandu went to live in the forests along with his wives Kunti and Badri, and there he spent most of his time hunting deer. He chose his stay a sylvan slope of the southern Himalayas. He roamed the forest resplendent in his armor and fearless with his sword, bow and arrows, and the forest dwellers looked upon him as if he were a deva who came down among them. Then one day, in the course of the hunt, Pandu shot down a deer that was engaged in the act of mating. The dying deer cursed Pandu, saying,
"As you have killed me at such a time, the same fate shall befall you,"
said the deer. Pandu's eyes were wide with shock.
"You shall die the moment you touch your wife in desire."
Shocked and very much grieved at the curse of the dying deer, Pandu decided to turn his back on the ways of the world, and he said to his wives, I shall practice abstinence and adopt an ascetic mode of life. I shall forsake you and my relatives and wander over the world with a shaven head and a begging bowl. You may go and inform my mother, Vidur and Bhishma and all at Hastinapur of this." Hearing these words, Kunti and Madri said, "O king, if you abandon us, we shall this very moment give up our lives. There are other paths to asceticism where your wives can be your companions. We too shall renounce the temptations of the world." Pandu replied, "Then together we shall practice the austere penances of the Vanaprastha ashram until I pass away." The Kuru king then distributed to deserving Brahmanas all the valuable robes and ornaments belonging to him and his wives. And he summoned his attendants and said, "Let it be known to all at Hastinapur that Pandu and his wives have renounced the world and gone to the forest." And the attendants made their way to Hastinapur with heavy hearts. When Dhritarashtra heard that what they had to say, he brooded over his brother's fate and was gravely disturbed. Meanwhile, one day my guru Vyasa came very hungry to the palace at Hastinapur. Pleased by Gandhari's hospitality, he granted her the boon she desired, 100 sons equal in might to the Dhritarashtra. In due course, Gandhari conceived, but 2 years went by without her being babies delivered, and she heard that a brilliant son was born to Kunti. The son was Yudhishthira. Turning desperate and rash with impatience and envy, she struck herself with a great force, and she was delivered of a lump of flesh as hard as an iron ball. When she had decided to cast it off, my Guru Vyasa, divining the event, appeared before her and said,
What have you done?
Without hiding the truth, Gandhari replied, I heard that Kunti was graced with a son. I could not bear it, and I struck myself in envy and grief. O Rishi, 100 sons were to be mine, and all I have brought forth is the lump of flesh. And to this Vyasa replied,
O daughter of Subala, my words can never go wrong. Have 100 pots of ghee placed in a secret pot at once.
My Guru then sprinkled cold water on the lump of flesh and then broke it into thumb-sized parts. Each part was deposited by midwife into the pot kept ready for it. While this was going on, Gandhari thought to herself, beyond doubt I will have 100 sons because the Muni has said so. But a daughter, a younger sister to these 100 sons will give me immense joy. If I have been virtuous, let a daughter be born to me. At the moment, my perceptive Guru addressed her.
Here are 100 sons. However, an extra part remains. It shall become the daughter you desire.
My Guru deposited that last part too in a pot of ghee and left for his ascetic abode in the Himalayas. In due course, Duryodhana was born from one of those spots, and he emerged braying like a donkey. And in response came the cries of jackals, vultures and crows, while stormy winds and blazing fire stalked the land. Gripped by fear, Dhritarashtra summoned Bhishma, Vidur and other wise men and said, By virtue of his birth, Yudhishthira, the firstborn prince, will rule the land, which is as it should be. But after him, will the son of mine become king? Tell me truly what the future holds for him. Even as Dhritarashtra spoke, the air was rent with weird howls of beasts of prey, marking these ill omens. Vidur said, These omens portend that your eldest son shall be in the ruin of your race and your land. Abandon him for the sake of your race. You still have 99 sons left. For the sake of your race and the land, discard this child. It is said that an individual may be given up for the good of the clan, a clan for the village, a village for the country, and thus the earth itself for the soul. But love for his son did not let the Dhritarashtra heed the advice. Soon after the birth of Duryodhana was born, Yuyutsu, the son of Dhritarashtra and woman of the Vaishya caste. Then came the remaining 99 sons of Gandhari and the daughter Dushal. O sage, you have narrated in detail all about the marvelous birth of the offsprings of Dhritarashtra. You also spoke of Yudhishthira, the son born to Kunti. How did this happen when Pandu was under the curse of the deer? And tell me also the birth of my other great-grand-uncles and my great-great-grandfather Arjun. Vaishampayan replied, This is how it came to pass. With intentions of renouncing the world, Pandu, along with his wives, traversed the mountainous realms of Chaitara and beyond and arrived on the Himalayas at Gandhamman. From Gandhamman, they proceeded to the lake of Indradyumna, crossed the mountains there and came to the Shatashrina range where they stayed. Pandu soon became a favorite of the holy men at Shatashringa. Once, when they were about to set for the abode of Brahman, Pandu, with his wives, joined them. And the rishis said, The mountains beyond Shatashringa are formidable. How will these princesses climb over those heights? Do not come with us. So Pandu said, Then you tell me, recalling the events that led to my birth, may I obtain children in the same manner? The rishis replied, Seers that we are, we progeny in store for you. Achieve by your efforts what destiny holds for you. Do what you ought to be. You shall be rewarded. After listening to the words of rishis and ever awake of the curse of the deer, Pandu called Kunti aside and said, The rishi Manu had said that men failing to have offspring of their own may beget them through other chosen ones. Therefore, Hearken to me and bring forth the children by the grace of one who has released Brahman. Kunti replied, Not even in my thought can I entertain a man other than you. Besides, who is there who excels you among men? I am your lawful wife. You beget our children, and when they are born, I shall follow you to heaven. Pandu, well versed in the ways of morality, told her, In the days of yore, women were free to conduct their lives as they desired. They were not even bound to one man. The practice was considered right and not immoral. Besides, it is eternally favorable to women. It was Sweta Ketu, the son of Rishi Udalak, who forced the present restraints on women. You are also aware, Kunti, how our own line of the Kurus was kept alive by Krishna Dwapan. Therefore, do what is right as I have stated. Then Kunti told Pandu of her mantra from Rishi Durvasas and said, The power of the mantra can summon any deity to beget children for us. Tell me, which deity should I summon? Pandu replied, Summon Dharma without delay. Being the deity of righteousness, he will render our actions immaculate, and the son born will be the most righteous of Kurus. Kunti chanted the mantra, and drawn by its power, Dharma, the presiding deity of righteousness, arrived to do her bidding. And by his grace, Kunti obtained an excellent son, and as soon as he was born, a voice from the realms above said, The first child of Pandu shall be named Yudhishthira. He shall reign as a king, famous in all the three worlds for his unflinching righteousness and honesty. After the birth of Yudhishthira, Pandu said to Kunti, It is said that physical strength is the distinction of a Kshatriya. Therefore, obtain a son of immense strength. Accordingly, Kunti invoked Vayu, the powerful deity of wind, arrived and said, O Kunti, tell me what is in your mind. Smiling modestly, Kunti replied, Give me a strong son whose might will humble the pride of the mightiest. And then was born Bhima, of matchless strength and valor, and a voice from the realms above said,
This child shall be the mightiest of the mighty.
Soon after his birth, O monarch, Bhima was sleeping in Kunti's lap. When startled by the growl of a tiger, she suddenly rose and Bhima was thrown off. The infant fell on a rock, which his body, hard as a gate, broke into smithereens. And as it happened, Bhima was born on the same day as Duryodhana. After the birth of Bhima, Pandu reflected, How shall I obtain a son whom will win the admiration of the whole world? Destiny and human effort together make the world go. Without timely effort, destiny can never fulfill itself. I know Indra to be the most potent and glorious among the Devas. Pandu thought to himself, I shall please him by my unstained penance to obtain a son who is superior and invincible in battle. Then to gratify Indra, Pandu prescribed observance of a year-long vow for Kunti. As for himself, he observed dire penances and deep meditation, standing himself up on one leg from dawn to dusk. When much time had elapsed, Indra came to Pandu. He said, I shall give you a son who will be friend to the virtuous and a destroyer to his foes. He shall be famous in all the three worlds. Pandu then said to Kunti, The chief of the Devas is well pleased. You shall soon have a son who is brilliant and superhuman in skills, noble and handsome. He will also be invincible in battle. Invoke Indra for a son who will be the embodiment of Kshatriya glory. Invoked by the power of the mantra, O monarch, Indra appeared before Kunti, and the son born to her by Indra's grace was Arjuna, your great-grandfather. And as soon as the child was born, the earth and the sky resounded with a voice from the realms above, which addressed Kunti thus in loud, clear tones.
This invincible child will make you famous.
In valor, he will equal Vishnu, Shiva and Parashuram. He will win the admiration of Shiva in combat and will thereby obtain the Pashupata weapon from him. He will acquire all the mysterious missiles and restore the glory of the Kurus. His might will one day set the Gandharva forest ablaze and gratify Agni with the fat of the creatures in it. He will, at the behest of Indra, annihilate the Nivatakachavas, foes of the Devas. These words, loud and clear, gladdened the hearts of the rishis of Shatashringa and the Devas above. All the celestial beings of diverse orders too crowned the skies in adoration of this son of Kunti. The rishis of the Shatashringa were the only witnesses to this unique scene, and it made them cherish the sons of Pandu even more. When Pandu, eager for more children, spoke to Kunti again, she replied, "The wise have decreed against the fourth child even in times of calamity. Though you know what is ordained in the Shatras, why do you in your eagerness for offspring ask me to divide it?" "How then were my ancestors, the twin Nakula and Sahadeva, born, O sage?" Janamjay said. Vaishampayan replied, "They were born to Pandu's second wife, Madri, the sister of Shalya." After the birth of children to Kunti and to Gandhari, Madri said to Pandu, "The preference shown by you to Kunti little grieves me, for I am her junior. Neither does the birth of 100 sons to Gandhari cause me any anguish. But what is most painful is that though I am your wife as Kunti, I remain childless. If Kunti were to let me benefit by the mantra, it would benefit you also. But as she is my rival for your affection, I consider it demeaning to go to her for a favor. If what I say has your approval, please speak to Kunti on my behalf." Pandu replied, "The thought has always been with me. I hesitated to reveal it because I did not know the drift of your mind. Now that I am assured by you, I shall approach Kunti, who I think will agree." And Pandu went to Kunti and said, "To ensure the expansion of my race and to make your name immortal, O Kunti, do what will indeed be hard for you. Help Madri to become a mother." Kunti acceded to Pandu's request, and Madri duly brought forth the twins Nakul and Sahadev by invoking the twin deities, the Ashwins. And as soon as they were born, a voice from the realms above said, "In vigor and beauty the twins shall pass all." After their birth, Pandu once again spoke to Kunti on behalf of Madri. But Kunti replied, "Using the mantra once, she has brought forth 2 sons. Artless that I was, I did not think of invoking the twins for 2 children. Her stealthy ways caused me anxiety. Therefore, do not command me further." Pandu let the matter rest. Then the rishis of Shatashringa conducted the rites of initiation of the five children and ceremonially named them Yudhishthira, Bhim, Arjun, Nakul and Sahadev. The rishis of Shatashringa watched the sons of Pandu grow into young boys of lion-like prowess, and they marveled at Pandu himself was elated at the sight of his sons nurtured under his mighty arm. Then one day, in the season of spring, which stirs the senses of all created things, Pandu strolled through the woods accompanied by Madri. In that sensuous scenery, Madri looked irresistible to Pandu. Seeking a compulsive union with her, he fell a victim to the impeccable laws of fate. And collapsing the lifeless Pandu in deep grief, Madri began to weep aloud. Her loud wails brought Kunti and the children to that spot. And Madri cried out in anguish, "Leave the children there and come here all along." Kunti left the children where they were and ran towards Madri. There she saw Pandu's dead lifeless body. And then she cried, "I am undone!" And then she said to Madri, "This hero had all along been guarded by me with benevolent care. How could you overlook the restraints of the deer's curse? Oh, Madri, you should have protected him. Why was he tempted in this secluded place? Oppressed by the memory of the curse, how could he bestir himself in the minor while with you?" Madri replied, "Revered sister, all my protests were of no avail." Kunti said, "Madri, you are more fortunate than I, because you witnessed the bloom of delight on the face of your our husband. But I shall follow him to the world beyond my seniority enjoys it. Therefore, rise, Madri, and rear our children." To this, Madri replied, "O revered sister, if I can survive you, it is certain I will not be able to rear your children as if they were mine. But you, O Kunti, will without doubt bring up the children in equal grace. As it was in the pursuit of my body that the king met with his death, it is this body of mine that should be burnt with his." With these final words, Madri ascended the funeral pyre of her husband. The rishis of Shatashringa, witnessing the death of Pandu, conferred amongst themselves and said, "The worthy King Pandu has come here and had sought to live the life of recluse with us. It is our duty to lead his wives and children back to his kingdom."
Then to entrust the sons of Pandu to Bhishma and Dhritarashtra, the rishi set out for Hastinapur with Kunti, the children and remains of Pandu and Madri.
And thus ends the third session of our rendering of Vaishampayan's recital of Vyasa's immortal Ityasa, the Mahabharata. Stay tuned for the next chapter of Mahabharata, which is the Pandavas at Hastinapur. Please like, share, subscribe this video. Thank you.